Good afternoon and welcome to Synaxis Press again. We're going to broadcast from the Synaxis Press. And as you can see, I'm sort of babysitting with my granddaughter Olga. And the thing I want to talk about today, rather interesting subject I think. I want to ask, do any of Orthodox Christians consider heterosexuality to be sinful? And before I go into that, I want to add a little footnote to yesterday's broadcast on facing reality or dealing with reality. And what we were talking about was computer brain or computer mind interface. When a lot of the prosthetic limbs that are developed, or even robots that help people who are crippled, who are, can't fend for themselves, what you do with a brain implant translates mental impulses into computer language. And the computer responds, the prosthetic limb or the robot responds because the brain waves have been translated into computer language and instruct the arm almost instantaneously to act. In some very heavy machinery, you get something similar. The operator doesn't use switches or valves or levers. If you want the machine to pick up something very heavy, you simply take your hand with this glove that's fitted on it. You move like this, and the machine follows your hand movements exactly. When it's gripped, the thing you want to lift, you pull the hand back. But the glove on the hand transmits the neural thoughts or images, signals, and transfers them into an actual action of the material. Now what I wanted to ask about, a lot of our monks, and as my regular viewers will know, I have no use for this idea that monks are an Illuminati and married people are an auditori, which is of course a Manichaean formula or a Gnostic formula. And I think serious errors are being made here, and I think they need to be corrected. It's extremely difficult to hold a marriage together, to make a decent marriage in the first place, but to put extra burdens on a marriage and to make it seem as if marriage makes a person inferior or a second-rate or a second-class Christian, I think this is catastrophic. And I really think it needs to be addressed, and I'm going to address it in a way. We have this mythology that there would have been no reproduction by means of sex if it hadn't been for the fall of mankind. And it is a mythology which cannot be substantiated. And it comes out of, and I know one or two of the Holy Fathers actually thought that as well. Nevertheless, we have to come to grips with the impossibility of that notion. First of all, God created male and female. The older of the two stories is He created male and female created He them. There's a later edition where a woman is created from Adam's rib, which of course is a complete impossibility, and we know that from basic genetics, and from the fact that only females can transmit mitochondrial DNA. But it's a symbolic story that gives us a prophecy and a revelation about the church. So we take it seriously as a revelation and a prophecy, but certainly not as something that actually happened. And the other thing is that if reproduction by sexual means came about only as a condition of the fall, God is still the author of sin, because He created male and female with the equipment for sexual intercourse to breed. We also know that other forms of breeding produce inferior results in inferior organisms, that sexual breeding produces a superior organism, no matter what organism is breeding. And the other thing is that sexual love, like parental love and grandparental love, and any kind of love, in fact, are the product of two neuropeptides, of oxytocin and vasopressin. And Now, either Satan created those two neuropeptides, which means that Satan could also create a human being, or God created the human being complete and had those neuropeptides involved in the creation. Or they developed by purely evolutionary means. So take your pick, but those two neuropeptides are responsible for human sexual desire, for human sexual love, for friendship, for social interactions, and for any form of love or affection. So if we understand that oxytocin and vasopressin are really the neuropeptides, are the generator for sexual desire, sexual love, and for marriage, for the love of children, for maternal love, for all these things, then either God created them or Satan created them. And if Satan created them and implanted them in mankind, then Satan can create human life. And if they're products of evolution, then they're, of course, totally natural, and they're absolutely necessary for the existence of human society. But they occur in all mammals and other organisms as well. So we understand that over the millions of years that man has been evolving, oxytocin and vasopressin have evolved as well, according to God's will now. All these things take place according to God's will. So when monastics say that married people are inferior or deformed, or as Augustine of Hippo would have said, procreation is a venial sin cloaked in the guise of respectability for the sake of procreation. That, of course, is a degenerate teaching. And a lot of these monastic teachings about marriage are equally degenerate. And the fact of the matter is, people don't always become monks for some kind of higher angelic reason. People don't get married simply because they're not strong enough to become monastics. Many people become monastics because they're not strong enough to cope with marriage, or because there's some other reason why they cannot fulfill marital conjugal relations with a wife. Or there's psychiatric illness or something like that. Or, of course, in many cases, they're divorced or widowed. It's a good thing for a widowed or divorced person to become a monastic and to try to pursue a spiritual life. But never to defame or degrade marriage in an era when divorce is so cheap and so easy that you can get a divorce almost mail order. And so you discourage people from the sanctity and holiness of marriage by telling them that it's somehow inferior and that God doesn't love married people as much as He loves monks. And you really undermine marriage and make it even more difficult for people to form marriage and family. But marriage and family are the cornerstones of civilization and society and culture. Monasticism is not. And Apostle Paul never says monasticism is an image and likeness of Christ in the church, but he does say that marriage is. So marriage is the higher calling of the two, regardless of what anyone says. And those of us who have been inside monasticism, who've visited and lived in other monasteries over decades, know very well that a large number of people have become monastics because they have psychotic or neurobiological behavior problems. That others have become monastics because they're gay and can't substantiate conjugal relations, and that's a very good solution for them. And others because they're simply not strong enough to cope with marriage, raising children, and living in the world. Very few have actually chosen monasticism as the higher calling, simply because it's the higher calling. And whatever any argument one wants to make, whatever slippery sophisms one wants to put forth, that's really the reality of it. Sexual desire, sexual love, the love of marriage, the love that we have for children, is really the product of two neuropeptides operating with other chemicals in the brain, with oxytocin and with vasopressin. So if that kind of love is sinful, God is clearly the author of sin, because there's no other one who could possibly have created these things, even if He created them through the process of evolution. They're the creation and gift of God. And they happened outside of Eden. They happened over millions of years of evolution. and they exist in all mammals and even so many lower forms below the level of mammal. So I wanted to say this, that we need to have our monks and others stop condemning and looking down on marriage, because we have such a huge problem keeping marriage together that we don't need this interference from people who couldn't cope with it and went to monasteries instead, trying to make themselves look better than people who can cope with marriage and raising children. So, tell me what could be greater than one of these, okay? What could be, more joyful and give more joy to the world than a child like this? So I wanted to put that out, and I wanted to ask, do you monks, I'm a monk too, of course, but do you hardcore monastics really think that heterosexuality is basically a sin? So thank you, and God bless.